This is Functional and Fabulous, the Omnichannel podcast, where we unbox tales of online retail and digital transformation.
In this episode, celebrities lose their temper.
There was an incident where a celeb accused me of calling the paparazzi on them.
You'll hear horrifying stories that will curdle your blood.
That makes it sound very dramatic.
Ger has another bloody poem.
I like to espouse poetry from time to time. It takes care of the mundane to give you time for the meaningful.
Gordon explains what it's like to listen to Ger's poems.
Or you hurt me, or you hurt me again.
And he suggests a punishment even worse than listening to Ger's poems.
I actually think that everybody should be forced to work either in a contact centre
100%.
or as a CX agent.
Ger gets his revenge.
He's laughing at he's laughing at me now. I can't do it. You're gonna have to do it now. You're gonna have to do it.
Oh, really?
I can't do it.
And there's another sodding pirate joke.
So what's your second pirate joke?
Two sodding pirate jokes. This episode of Functional and Fabulous is brought to you with pride by Studio 49, retail e-commerce experts, omnichannel growth consultants, and cut-through performance marketing specialists. Studio 49, where your digital retail success is built.
Hello, and you're very welcome to another episode of Functional and Fabulous. Today we're joined by Amy Kemp, Director of Omnichannel Customer Experience at Glossier, a powerhouse beauty brand based in New York City. Amy's career has been a little funky, to use her own words. She's gone from NYC restaurants to med school startups to leading CX at Glossier, and has tackled everything from panicked students to supply chain chaos on the journey. Now she's making AI work for customers, using gizmos to handle Wizmos, and discovering that pick-pack satisfaction is very real. We're talking good AI, bad AI, and what the hell AI, retail and digital, and why CX is the best job nobody notices until something goes wrong. Amy Kemp, welcome to Functional and Fabulous.
Thank you for having me.
So, Amy, what would you say is the important aspect of working in New York City restaurant scene as an ideal place to start to learn about handling customer experience issues?
You know, somebody who is hungry is really a particular customer. And I think if you can learn the ins and outs of, somebody who's maybe like on the edge of a nervous breakdown because they haven't eaten, making them feel settled and excited, you can probably tackle anything.
I feel like it's way more dramatic as well. Like the drama must be real in a New York City. My hunger is so immense. I'm going to have a nervous breakdown if you don't bring me my spaghetti immediately. I will also share, again, setting the scene. I'm 23. Indie sleaze is still popular. I was living in a basement, really trying to figure out my life, working in the, West Village in New York, which is a pretty shishi part of town, if you will. Mm-hmm. Lots of celebs were coming in, and I will share. There was an incident where a celeb accused me of calling the paparazzi on them while they were eating at the restaurant. And there I am, fighting back tears, being like, I don't even know how to do that. Honest to God, I think Robert De Niro is really reaching, I mean, seriously, what does he think? Is he that important? So
you get to the other side of that, you can kind of take on anything.
So I can well imagine. I mean, like there's a number of different crucibles that we talked about. You have the New York restaurant scene, panicking medical students, the wire cut pick that effectively turned the small mattress company you worked for into a viral sensation. So you've had a good few kind of interesting peaks of having to handle irritated people, I would say, over the over your career path.
I would agree with that. And also, managing my own feelings in this crazy world. I'm probably the toughest customer out there.
I don't think that gets talked about enough.
That's true. I was, yeah, I 100%. It's totally real. So tell us a little bit about Glossier. How did it get started as a business and where is it today?
Yeah. So Glossier was founded by Emily Weiss about 11 years ago at this point. She was working predominantly in fashion. She was going to the, backstage of runway shows, working with models, like working with Vogue, and started kind of getting very curious about all of these people who work in beauty, create all these beautiful looks, like what's in their kind of top shelf, what's in their medicine cabinet at home that allows them to like make people look so fabulous all the time. And she started a blog called Into the Gloss that was primarily focused on kind of like exploring what's in people's medicines cabinets that have these really interesting beauty backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And after doing this for a number of years, she understood like, hey, there's kind of a gap in the market of some really amazing products, right? Like all of these people on the runway are using foundation, but they're first shearing it out with moisturizer. Like we have the opportunity to really develop something like in that space that fills that hole. And she launched Glossier, which is, the French dossier, but with gloss, Glossier. And the brand really kind of took off. And here we are, still going strong.
It looks like, it's an absolutely gorgeous website. It looks like an absolutely beautiful product. What's the clientele like?
I think there isn't any like one particular Glossier customer. When I joined, we relaunched our Soho flagship store. And sometimes when we open new stores, people will wait in like line for an insane number of hours to get in for the first time. And we were walking down the line, kind of talking to people and hearing their stories. And there was a woman who I think was probably in her 70s who told us, like, I am going to wear Glossier products until I'm in ashes, which I thought was so funny. But because like our motto really is skincare first, makeup second, I think we offer a large catalog of products where like anyone can really find their journey.
And within that journey for the customer, you're the director of Omnichannel Experience. So what is your role in helping with that customer's journey?
Yeah, I think so. I would think that I have kind of two big functions within my job. One is like basically everything customer service kind of flows into me. So really understanding like, okay, we're always going to have those questions like, where is my package? What's going on, et cetera, et cetera. Like, how can we make sure we really have the right team in place? We're responding to people. We have the right process and policy to support our customer. So kind of that whole customer service piece. And then the other function of my job is really understanding kind of our customer more globally and like what we need to do to continue iterating on our experiences holistically to keep our customer engaged, to keep that retention, that loyalty, et cetera. And to me, that's really kind of one of my favorite parts of the job is like spending all this time in customer data, getting these clear insights, and then basically going to other parts of the company and like trying to influence them to be like, what would be really cool is if we did this instead of that. And this is why. So yeah, I would say like I'm an influencer.
I love that. So it's kind of split, isn't it? It's kind of make customers happy and then make changes to keep them happy and keep them.
Yeah. And, I think in our like modern e-commerce world, pretty much every brand has competition, right? Like, and I think more and more brands are really competing on this idea of like loyalty and retention, or like, how are you distinct and how do you have a relationship with your customer where they're going to continue to like pick you versus somebody else. Recording in progress, versus kind of somebody else in the space. And I think so much of customer experience is about like really listening to your customer, like hearing where we can still deliver and like making those changes to really build those meaningful relationships.
Yeah. Like, do you think like the role of technology then plays a big part in this? Because on one hand, you've got the commerce experience now, which is fairly leveled across most retailers. And then you have the experience component where, okay, this is the battleground where we're going to compete. That makes it sound very dramatic. But then if you're entering in that battleground, is there a role that technology needs to play, and what role do you think it plays?
First of all, I went to performing arts high school, so I love the drama. You can keep it coming throughout the entire conversation. But absolutely, I was thinking about kind of this morning, as like a customer experience team, like most teams in e-commerce, right? We have like a couple like governing KPIs that we're, responsible for delivering to the brand. And one of those big KPIs is FRT, first response time, right? Like, how quickly do we get back to that customer when they reach out? Like, I'm sure we've all had that experience of, somebody, I don't know, charged us incorrectly and like, we need to talk immediately, like I need to get refunded. And so I think first response time is really a critical part of that customer journey. And I think holistically, we've kind of come at that problem really from like a staffing POV of looking at like, okay, we know that we get more inbound tickets. We call people who reach out to us tickets on Mondays. So like, we're going to staff for like this on Mondays and then this on Tuesday, and we'll put this team here and this team here. And I think where the industry is going, which makes a lot of sense to me, is instead of looking at this from like a big holistic staffing POV, is really looking at kind of the different reasons why people reach out to your brand, and then kind of making the right processes and protocols based on contact reason. And so, for example, to give like an obvious one that I always give, what we call like order changes. So cancel requests and like address changes. If somebody realizes, okay, I've already said I'm moving, right? I bet you 3 to 5 times in this process, I'm going to deliver something and send it to my old apartment. And I'm going to realize the second I look at that confirmation email, and I'm going to panic and cold sweat and email that brand immediately. And, at Glossier, we have a 1-hour cancellation window. If I can connect with someone in that window, great. They can, update my address. It's fine. If I can't, it's going to be a really bad experience. So that to me feels like a great use case for AI, right? Like AI responds almost immediately. So it's going to guarantee that we can connect with that person, perform that action, cancel that order, whatever it is, that again is going to like build that customer loyalty. And then I think I say this like kind of nested in the overall conversation of first response time, because we can still hit that first response time kind of on average by prioritizing the tickets where speed really, really matters. And then where it's less important, we can follow different processes while still like holistically really ensuring that we're hitting those KPIs.
That's really interesting that you mentioned AI, because I think we're probably going to talk about that quite a bit. One of the things that I think is probably important for us to flag earlier on is the difference between ticket deflection and actually providing meaningful resolution for customers using AI. Because the temptation is, I'm going to deflect as many tickets as I can from agents. I'm going to reduce the amount of headcount and the amount of cost that I've got, and we're going to tick this big box to say, yes, we've done this and we're using AI. But unless the resolution is meaningful, then you're just causing the brand a longer term problem, right?
Mm-hmm. I could not agree more. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say probably once or twice a day, I get an email from some type of AI sales company saying, I can promise you 100% deflection. And from my POV, I'm like, I'm sure I could deliver 100% deflection to myself, and then I wouldn't have a business anymore, right? Because why would someone bother, reaching out to us when they're never going to connect with the human agent? So I think what we have to really look at things, I try to make it all decisions kind of on a triangle. So really thinking about the customer experience, but also the business experience, like what's the right move for the experience, for the business, and then also kind of through an employee experience. And when we can use that triangle to really look at kind of decision making, generally we're doing something right.
Brilliant. So when you think about an AI, I'm just going to obsess over the cancellation example for 1 second.
Do it.
The AI has to not only be able to respond to the customer, but it has to be able to complete the action of cancellation or the action of an address change. And I think for people who haven't experienced this, on the business side, this will appear quite revolutionary. I'm assuming that's what happens with you guys. The AI it can handle the process as well as the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think AI, depending on how well you train your AI, to use a kind of goofy term, you can also like escalate things, right? Like it can be that like first line of defense. And if something truly goofy is going on, it can be like, whoop, this is outside of my realm of expertise. Like, let's make sure we're connecting you with the right person.
Yeah, and I think that, again, that is fundamentally important. But it deals with the customer because you've got, okay, here's the urgent thing that's very simple, and that's now resolved. Customer very, very happy. Customer's got a bit more complexity, needs to talk to a real person, and that person then needs to be empowered to, okay, we can fix this.
Yeah.
And from anyone thinking about this, because I'm sure there'll be retailers listening going, oh, this is fantastic. How do you even start on that journey of implementation?
Yeah. So for us, I think Glossier was a pretty early adopter of AI. It predates me joining the brand. So sadly, I can't report like what year they brought that on as a resource, but in 2023, for kind of a series of reasons, we took a step back and looked at our AI strategy holistically. I mean, obviously, there have been a lot of advancements in AI over recent years. And we really started by kind of obsessing over the reasons, like the contact reasons, the reasons why customers like reach out to us in the first place. And I think that, and not only why people reach out to us, like, when do we see X versus Y, right? Like, we know if we have a promotion, we have an exciting product launch, probably like 7 to 12 days later, that's when we're going to get a huge influx of like, where's my package tickets, right?
Yep.
And so really understanding kind of what our customer's journey is, and then working backwards, again, looking at the use cases in which having, again, that incredibly fast first response time is most important.
Got it. So you have that. And then how do you then deal with the more complex things? Is that a case of, okay, we're going to route, and then we're going to route the query over towards our agents, and we're going to train our agents? Or do you then double down on how can we train the AI to do this better?
I think obviously with AI, like, you're constantly giving it feedback. So in some ways, like when we do see maybe something that wasn't perfectly handled, or we see something being escalated that we think that the AI can handle, like, we're going to give feedback and we're going to iterate and improve, but predominantly like pass it to a human agent, right? I think for me, if the AI is no longer providing the value that we think the AI should be, providing, which again is that incredibly fast response time or the ability to do that small action that has a downstream impact, why then try to fit, what's that expression, like a square peg into a round hole? Like, that's when I think we should definitely pass it to a human agent.
And when you're looking at the different types of tickets that you've got coming in, I'm assuming that 80 or 90% of the tickets can be classified in very few ways. Is that right? Do you categorize that way?
Definitely. I think we definitely see patterns and, trends. And then also there are only so many reasons like why someone's going to reach out to an e-commerce brand. It's so Wizmo tickets, where's my package? Or we sometimes call them package status at Glossier. So that's what I mean. Obviously, that's a huge reason why people reach out to us. And I think sometimes the ways that like AI technology companies or technology companies in general, like, talk about package status tickets is like a little bit maybe unkind to customers. There's this idea like, most brands use Shopify. We use Shopify. Shopify has statuses that don't, denote like, oh, this order has been shipped, this hasn't been, etc. And so the AI promise is like, oh, well, we can go into Shopify, we can like understand the order status, and like we can pass it back to the customer. Done. Pretty much everyone buys everything online, right? Like, everybody on a computer, like, probably has some working knowledge of how to understand what's going on a tracking link. I have a friend who works for the Home Shopping Network. I don't know if you have like the equivalent. Yeah. Okay, great. So could not be further away from e-commerce, in terms of like her day-to-day job, but recently made a joke. She was like, oh, you're in trouble when you land on that like Narvar tracking page. And I was like, how do you know what Narvar is? Right? Like, I think most people have like a pretty good fundamental idea of like how this part of e-commerce works. So if a customer is taking the time to reach out to you and say, where's my package? What's going on? It's probably not as simple as like, it shipped. Mm-hmm. And so for us, finding kind of an AI partner who could help us with some of these queries, which again, we think if someone's scared about where their package is, a fast response really matters here. It was having an AI partner who could actually open a tracking link and parse that information like a human and understand, okay, yep, this got lost somewhere in Norway. And therefore, like, I understand that with in mind, like, let's take the next action step versus like, well, it shipped.
Yeah.
AI out.
Yeah, we all know how to check the status of a package. But
yeah,
how do you have that contextual awareness of this package is stuck? Because, hey, that status hasn't moved for 4 days and it should have done. What do you do next? And that's pretty impressive because the standard, we've got an AI response is, here's your status.
Here's your status, order processing. It sounds like as well, it sounds like it's important that you ring fence what the AI does and knows about, we'll say, and what it doesn't, and you have to be pretty clear about that, So, do you typically train the AIs with a lot of general knowledge or is it really, okay, here's what you know about, and then after that, you just hand it over?
Yeah. So when we were looking at AI partners and we met with a lot of different people in the field, we wanted to go with a partner that makes like a specific AI bot for each contact reason. And the reason why that was important to us is because we could basically give each bot like the amount of information it needs to do one very specific function and nothing else, right? Reducing that chance for the AI to potentially hallucinate and like give the customer information that they don't really need or is not helpful.
Yeah, that's quite clever because I mean, there must be a huge, there must be a large temptation to just say, okay, we'll dump the entire knowledge base on the AI and it'll figure it all out. But no.
I have worked at Glossier for over 2 years. And I would say like once a quarter, we're like, this is the quarter. We're going to go through our knowledge base and make everything is up to date. And we have never done that task. And we will eventually because I'm an optimist. But it just, to me, there was a lot of inherent danger, I think, in just giving the AI a ton of information that I can't even confidently say is up to date.
Yeah, keeping your knowledge base up to date. And these things just grow and grow and grow, and then you change process. Because like one of the fundamental parts of your job is changing the process. So then is every single article in the knowledge base that references that process getting updated? And how do you manage that?
If anyone can tell me, I would love to know.
Excellent. So we'll put that call out if anybody knows how to... Anybody knows how to do that without having a small army of content editors, then we would all like to know, I think.
Answers on a postcard. So you're using AI for like quite what coverage would you say of your tickets are like entirely handled, we'll say, to the satisfaction of customers by AI? Would you know?
A lady never tells her secret.
Lady never tells. A lady never tells. 82%. Okay.
100%.
100% ticket deflection.
Do you know, actually, on a slightly separate but also wondering note, because I've often wondered in Ireland that it's unusual for e-commerce merchants to have support, so chat support after, let's say, 5:30, that kind of a way. But most people are actually buying in the evenings. And I've always thought it would be a really useful experiment to test to see how having that additional support in the evenings when people are on the stores and buying, how useful that is. From a customer experience point of view, have you experimented in that? Would your staff be on, after hours or in antisocial hours and things like that, or?
So I will say, I think we're lucky in that our team spans 3 time zones. So we have some members in the UK, some EST, and then PST.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have wide coverage on that front. But I don't think we have full force kind of explored it in the way that you're imagining. But it's definitely something that we think about in terms of you can't do it all,
yeah.
right? And you can only really do 1 or 2 things well at a time. And so, I think eventually we'll get there on the priority matrix.
Mm. So, okay, so you've done quite a few things. It sounds like you've done a lot more than a lot of businesses have in the area of trying to approach customer satisfaction via AI. What else? What's next for Glossier, or what other things are you experimenting with?
That's a good question. I think right now we have really spent a lot of time delving into kind of customer data from a number of different lenses, NPS, CSAT, like ticket data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and have spent a lot of time kind of pulling out themes and also kind of mapping, obviously people give us feedback, and I like to kind of run that against data regarding if and when people return to shop with us again. Because talking about prioritization again, there are 900 things that I want to do in any given day. But in order to make the right decisions, like what is the thing that is really going to hurt our relationship with the customer? And not to bring this full circle, but I think one of the things that the data shows very clearly, we don't get a lot of, in terms of NPS, let's say, we don't get a lot of detractors who say customer experience is the reason that I'm not coming, or is the reason I'm unhappy with this experience. But they have one of the highest instances of being kind of spurned and then not wanting to come back and kind of shop with us again. And I think at first when I saw that, I was kind of scratching my head being like, have we done something that's really that horrible? But it didn't take me long to really think, well, you're only interacting with customer service, right? If something else has already gone wrong. And then to have that experience and then to also not have the experience you want kind of with your CX, with the customer service piece, you're probably not going to shop with this brand again. And so I think a big focus is really on CX as retention.
That's an interesting one. So so basically you're looking at what the experience is, and rather than, as you say, rather than measuring just NPS and CSAT, you're measuring what interactions they had and whether they came back and bought again or not.
Yeah.
Makes an awful lot of sense.
I think that goes beyond, and the point of it being double bad. It's you're not. Nobody ever calls you to say, "Hey, just call in to say everything's fantastic." Just calling to say it's brilliant, love it. They're calling, not calling, or they're interacting with you because something awful is, well, not awful. That's probably a bit dramatic. Their package might be late, and they're like, "Why is my package stuck?"
Yeah.
Or why have you double billed my credit card? That could be pretty awful for somebody.
Yeah.
Not that double billing of credit cards happens that often, but but then to not be able to either connect with somebody and not be able to get a resolution to your satisfaction, then why would you go back to that brand?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, you hate me, and oh, you hate me again.
Yeah.
Fool me once,
something went wrong, and
shame on you.
Also, something could not be fixed.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's a super valid point of what is the role of CX? It's not a cost center. it's we are fixing the problems that are caused by other things within our business.
Yeah, and I don't even know it's necessarily problems, with the business. It's just, there's only so much we can really control. And I think so much of like when you interact with a customer who clearly is feeling quite frazzled, it's because like something scary that they can't control is happening. And so, yeah, it's really, I think, our value to make people feel seen and heard.
That's also a really valid point. It reminds me, I was once asked a question. I'll pose the same question to you. If, and it comes back to carriers. I seem to be obsessed with carriers at the moment. Yeah. But if your carrier loses a package, or if your carrier is not hitting their delivery promise, whose responsibility is that? Is that the carrier's responsibility, or is it the brand's responsibility? Because very often it's outside of the brand's control.
Well, I might just adjust that a tiny bit. Now, I know that it's a totally valid question, but I think in the mind of the customer, who are they holding responsible? And
who the customer holds responsible, I think that's
obvious.
I think that's quite an obvious answer to that question.
So does the other answer matter then?
But what is the reality?
Tell us, Amy Kemp.
Yes. No, I totally agree. Like, I think no one's going to kind of look at the experience cohesively and say like, well, at this point, it really became the carrier's responsibility. It's like, no, it's their experience shopping with your brand, right? And that really ends even after the package is delivered, right? And they like open it up and the order is as expected. And even sometimes it goes further, right? In which like, I don't know, an item is missing and then they have that experience with like CX, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think you have to like look at it as a holistic experience.
I think you need to look at it holistically. Like, it can be very challenging in terms of level of influence. And one of the things I started to see, which is quite interesting, again on the carrier front, in feedback in various tickets, is why do you use X carrier? Is a question that then gets asked. So assuming that customers are not carrier aware, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, by the way. Just carrier bashing, probably. But
we definitely see that a great deal. And there's no pattern, right? It's like we send something, in the US, like via USPS, and it's like, oh, I hate USPS. And then we send something to someone else via DHL, and they're like, oh, I hate DHL. Like, it's just people have different experiences, different carriers, and we can't really control for that.
It kind of comes down to if you've had one bad experience with one carrier, that stays with you. And the point that you've just raised of if you have a bad experience with the brand, you ain't coming back. Or you'd certainly go back under duress.
And tell us, Amy, do you get on the pick line much? Do you get to the coalface? Are you answering the tickets occasionally? Are you on a pedestal regarding?
I pontificate over tickets, or do you actually participate in the tickets? See what I did there?
I try to do about an hour of tickets per week. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And to be honest with you, I'm actually like not a very good CX agent. There are people who have a lot more talent at it than I do. Like I will share somewhat recently, we had a launch that sold out very quickly, much more quickly than we anticipated. And one of the tickets I worked at was a customer kind of expressing their frustration of like, I really wanted to buy this and like I couldn't because it was sold out. And, I think I probably had been having a long day and I was like, I'm going to really take a moment and connect with this customer and, really give them like a peek behind the curtain. Like, no one is more disappointed than we are, that we like sell out too quickly. And I'm so sorry about this. I think I even said in the email, maybe like, if I had a time machine, I really was on this journey. And then they responded back to me very quickly with something along the lines of, get your stuff together. And it made me realize, right, like I am most effective when I am really looking at this kind of puzzle holistically and understanding what are the levers that we need to change as a business to, again, really drive that loyalty and retention. And then again, how can I influence those priorities across the business, in a way that makes sense with, again, like our customer experience, our business needs, and also our employee experience. I am never going to make every single person happy.
Mm-hmm. Even though you're empathizing and you're offering the sneak peek and all the rest of it, in reality, they just didn't get what they wanted. Everybody else got it. They have enormous FOMO and they don't care. And you need to get your shit together is what I'd imagine was actually in that email, right? Yeah. It's interesting you touch on employee experience there. I always think it's very much kind of a left behind thought or concern in businesses, but amongst all other people who can most affect what's going on in your business, the employee satisfaction and keeping employees happy and the fact that employees are enjoying, let's say, to the most that they can, their work environment and so on is important and is going to have a huge benefit to your business. How does Glossier think about that? What are you guys doing in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of to go back to AI for a second, I think one thing that's been very exciting about AI is, in some ways it helps with those kind of like very quick, kind of like immediate tickets that are probably not the most maybe like memorable customer interaction someone's going to have in a day. And it frees up some of that like time and capacity for those moments in which you really need to spend time connecting with someone, right? Or like somebody had a bad experience. And we need to do something kind of unique again to like rebuild that trust. Mm-hmm. That's when the work is meaningful. I think we say this all the time, but I'll just say it again here. Like being a CX agent is an incredibly hard job. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. People are, the anger is coming towards you and we're not really in a position where we can say, well, it's not my fault. Like you should talk to logistics, because again, for the customer, right, it's like one cohesive brand experience. And so I think really taking those moments to carve out times for like meaningful interaction are critical. Mm-hmm. Both ways.
It's interesting. So to be poetic about it, I like to spout poetry from time to time. It takes care of the mundane to give you time for the meaningful.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel that should be like on a wall somewhere.
On a T-shirt. Do you know, I have to share a little, CX experience my partner had just before Christmas and bought a coat for her father. Let's say 2 weeks before Christmas, it was the present for the family for their father, and the coat never turned up. And it was let's say Monday, and Christmas Day was, I don't know, or the day that they were presenting it was Wednesday, Christmas Eve, and it still hadn't arrived. And she phoned up the brand, and I obviously working in e-commerce and actually know the brand. Said, kind of trained her a little bit and said, look, they're not, may or may not be able to do a lot for you. It's almost certainly stuck in a depot somewhere. Take it easy on them. Don't don't start hammering into them, and maybe they'll help you out. So she phoned them up anyway, and the company is from the north of the country, and they're very lucky in that they have a lovely accent in English when they speak English, but also they use the word "we" a lot, as in small or little. And Maureen came off the phone anyway, and I said, "How did you get on?" And she said, "Oh, the girl said she'll have a wee look." and it was just like with that kind of, I don't know how to put it, but it was such a charming way of saying, I'm going to look into it for you. And got it started actually. And basically an hour before we had to leave for our parents, the coat arrived in the door. So it was a great story all around. But I thought I must use this term "we" if anybody ever wants to complain about something. I'll have a wee look at it for them.
I love it. I mean, earlier, I guess in Q4 of 2024, I similarly had an experience where we kind of covered earlier, I'm incredibly cheap. I would say that's my dominant personality trait.
Cheap? I thought you were the queen of sustainability.
Yeah, sure. That.
Was that not it? No? I misunderstood.
But We have like a lot of sheets. Again, I used to work at a bedding company, so there's a lot of sheets in this house that are looking, pretty old and dingy. And so I've recently gone to this idea of dye baths, DYE baths, where like you can send, clothing, bedding there, and then they can dye it a different color and make it look kind of exciting and new to you again. And I sent some sheets to this dye bath, and they sent me back a dress. And I was like, this is not what I sent you and not my dress. And despite, working in CX, I really got myself into a lather. I was like, I want this. Like, now I have this person's dress in my house. And I called them. And it was like the second I spoke to like a reasonable, cool human on the other side of the phone, I was like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, this will get worked out. Like,
did they kind of say, is it a nice dress? No, it was a horrible dress. That's why.
It wasn't. It was a very bright pink, which is really, I live in New York, but yeah, I think like we sometimes like forget about kind of the humanity in all of this. And like, you just need a little reminder.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's interesting in both of those stories is as soon as we connected with somebody that was able to diffuse the situation, either by being cool or through their use of we, and then like it would have been fine if the coat hadn't been delivered, and immediately you feel better about the problem that's happened with this dress, and I don't think we're in a position where AI can actually do that right now, and
but importantly, it gives time for people, like for the CX agents, to be able to also not to be so knackered by answering, where's my order, all the time, that they get the opportunity to actually deal with it humanely.
I actually think that everybody should be forced to work either in a contact center,
100%,
or as a CX agent, or in retail, or in a restaurant at some point.
Dealing with people.
Like they should learn how to do that, and then that will inject some sanity into the strange process exceptions that they're making.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about Glossier. When I joined, I think my first week, they were like, okay, and on Friday, you're going to go work in the store for a day. And, are very good about being like, great, like that you need to go to the store and like see how this works or have this experience. Because I think it's about, I don't think you really like understand like the full ecosystem of how the different parts of the business like work together, or like where there's overlap and where there's differences until you're like really in those spaces.
And then you understand when someone's like, oh, can we just make an exception and just call the warehouse? That's the other place somebody should go and actually work everybody should actually be on the receiving end of one of those calls to say, like, can you just cancel this order that's already shipped? And deal with an exception to understand what is actually happening when that's triggered.
You can't. I think, if it's going to the wrong address, send another package. Like, it's really cruel.
Cruel to the team member in the warehouse.
Who's on their hands and knees, like digging through like a pallet of,
on the 20th of December.
hasn't seen their family in a week. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you guys get to work in various departments and a little bit of cross-pollination of knowledge and ideas within the business, right?
Yeah, and that's like another, I think, special thing about Glossier is, my title, right, is like Omnichannel customer experience. I have sat, in the retail function of the business where it was like everything customer facing is going to be in retail. I now sit in like kind of more of the e-commerce function of the business. So like that is a lot of kind of my day over day touchstones. But my responsibility is really kind of like that cohesive omnichannel brand experience. And I hope that other brands like start to think about things in those ways too.
It's very interesting. So, Glossier in general, where do you see the business going, or what kinds of things are you interested in the future, just as an overall business? I presume there's only so many categories of makeup. Maybe there isn't. Maybe
you can never have enough moisturizer.
Never.
Never.
Ever. Okay, so I'm wrong about that. More moisturizer. So after you've made more moisturizer, what's next for the business?
There are so many exciting things coming down the pipeline, and I'm at my heart a rule follower, and I would hate to accidentally share something that I'm not supposed to share.
Oh, go on. Go on. More moisturizer, it's right.
Share a wee secret.
Share a wee secret with us.
But I think we are having, for so long, the customer was really kind of focused on that e-commerce experience and obviously then like e-commerce plus some retail. And now we're also in wholesale. So I think, we're really kind of enjoying and figuring out the evolution of like, what does it mean to be a brand that exists in all these different places and all these different ways? And it's a very exciting problem to kind of, not even a problem, opportunity to come to. And then I would say, other than that, follow us on Instagram.
Smash the like button, subscribe.
I think if you can solve that problem of taking a very controllable customer experience of one channel of, okay, it might not be perfect, it might not be easy to control, but then you add in retail and then you add in wholesale, and you still want to maintain that brand experience around CX. That's an enormous challenge. Like, that's going to keep you busy for the next, I don't know how many years.
Yeah. I will say this is an interesting, Glossier really does in many ways feel like a community. I think the, brand kind of emerged during such a like exciting time during so many people's lives. Like there really is kind of like this deep affinity. And I do feel like we're really still connected and tapped into that community. You mentioned earlier, like no one ever like emails to say that they're having a good time. I feel like I'm in an incredibly privileged position to say like, actually people do email us quite often to let us know that they're having an incredibly good time, or, they're getting ready for their wedding and they're like, here I am like putting on my Glossier Ultra Lip. And it's like, thank you so much for like including us to be like a part of this amazing day in your life. Or we get like people write letters to our office, like telling us about, ways that we've been a part of their journey. And we read every single one of those letters and like really try to respond to as many as we can. So yeah, I do feel like in many ways, like there is something really exceptional and special about Glossier.
Fantastic. That is a way to wrap up. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
I can't drop my mic because it's attached to something. But,
but that was a...
The sound engineer is nearly going to jump out of her chair at me.
Yeah. Stop grabbing
Sorry,
your
Elaine.
mic. Yeah, stop it. Amy, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, this morning. And we hope you... I'm going to have to do that bit again. We're going to have to do an edit.
I thought, but are we going to edit out my mic drop that I didn't drop?
We're going to have to do a little edit there and rewind a little bit. Amy, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about some of the things that Glossier have been up to. He's laughing at he's laughing at me now. I can't do it. You're gonna have to do it now. You're gonna have to do it.
Oh, really?
I can't do it.
Amy, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Before I say goodbye, because you liked my pirate joke so much, can I tell you one more joke?
Well, absolutely.
First we need to tell the first pirate joke because that was pre-recorded.
That was not on record.
Pre-recorded.
So you're gonna have to double joke.
That was PR. Okay, so.
Okay, what's a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
You'd think it's the R, but it's the C they love.
Hardy. So what's your second pirate joke?
How many tickles does it take to make an octopus laugh?
I don't know. How many tickles does it take to make an octopus laugh?
10 tickles.
Oh, God almighty, you'd make a great dad. Is this your father-in-law who's arrived recently giving you all these good jokes?
No, I heard that on a podcast. And that was like one of the first things I said to my partner of nearly 10 years. So.
It's a brilliant joke. Love it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay. So, customer CX. I think we can't call this episode CX is sexy, because we did that last year, right?
We've already done it.
You've done that one.
That would just be like going over all ground. But I think this is like CXCA.
CXA, yeah. You pronounce it.
CXAI.
Give it a French pronunciation. It sounds ultra good.
What le CX?
But it's interesting. I like the CX as retention remark, and I think it makes an awful lot of sense to to look at how customer service and customer experience has influenced people to come back or not, as the case may be. I'd say by the time somebody gets in touch with customer service, you're probably almost halfway to losing them as a customer anyway, right?
Well, unless they're writing you a letter to say they've had a great time.
Yeah.
But yes, they're not reaching out to you because they're happy.
Normally.
And that being able to tie in that customer outreach, resolution, and future recurring revenue, like, is an analytics quest that, if you can go on, really would prove the investment in some of the changes that people could be making.
But it must be totally, I presume you can tag, easily enough tag customers that got in touch with you through your various channels, and
I'm sure theoretically that's very easy, and
you could train an AI to do it.
And who is going to pick up that piece of analysis on a day-to-day basis while everything else is on fire?
There is a couple of interesting ones, though. I really like the comment on training the AI specifically for the tasks, because I know, you get an AI and you just kind of want to dump everything into it, and like one big washing machine of data, and then hope that everything comes out.
And what is not a strategy? Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not?
We hope that the AI is going to give the right answer.
I think there's a lot of hope and strategy in the world these days. But we've managed actually to go through 2 episodes without mentioning any geopolitical stuff. We'll keep that going, right?
Yeah, this is a non-geopolitical zone.
This is a bubble of its own e-commerce greatness.
But I am interested in that point of having the different AIs for different jobs, and identifying the jobs that are really good for AI to do. And the actions that AI can take. Like, I love the cancellation window. I think that's brilliant, because it's like, that is a job that AI can do. It's done. So you haven't got to worry about it. 2 things. 1, your agent isn't having to do really mundane, boring stuff. Yeah. But number 2, there's a better chance that the customer is going to get the service that they need in that situation. Yeah. So that's a brilliant use case for AI. I love the ticket example where, so you've got your tracking information, and the AI then does nothing with it. It's just like, you're being able to then do something with that and make that bit meaningful. Because there's nothing more frustrating than like, I'm not contacting you because I don't know how to use
a tracking number.
A tracking number. Of course, I know how to use a tracking number. I get packages delivered every day. So, finding those areas to focus on and fix and have meaningful impact into the business, I think is a spectacular use case for it. I'd love to know who their vendors are.
Yeah. Well, we don't.
No, we don't.
I think we did ask the question.
We did ask the question, yeah. It's super confidential, but those vendors sound super good. Super
good. So if they want to respond to the LinkedIn post about it. The training the bots, that is definitely one that is of interest. Parsing the tracking code or the tracking information is interesting as well. So, because the furthest most systems go is to say your order is processing, your order is processed, your order is part shipped or whatever. But that extra piece where you go to the AI follows the tracking link and then parses the information on the tracking page, and then uses that somehow
and infers whether or not this is
an escalation requirement.
This is something that is working as it should, or this is something that is working as it shouldn't, and then taking an action on it would be really interesting. So to give you an example, package is stuck in a sort centre. It's been there for 5 days.
Package is in Athlone for 5 days.
Yeah, your package is in Athlone. I wonder what could be in Athlone that delays packages.
Oh, most of the couriers in the country.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah. But your package has been in Athlone for 5 days, and the AI is like, right, okay, we're going to have to recall that package. And it's going to take X number of days. So instead, we're just going to send you a separate order right now. We're going to send you a fresh order.
Yeah.
And then we're going to raise the request to recover that package from the carrier where it's stuck.
Yeah.
That's where it gets super interesting, because not only have you got the saving with the customer, but you also have the operational saving of making that contact, reaching out and resolving with the carrier, or the AI agent just files the carrier claim straight away.
Yeah.
And you're taking all of those operational issues away and moving. And these are the kind of applications for AI within business and certainly within e-commerce operations that I find really exciting. Not like, oh yeah, we can serve you the right level of article. It's we can get you this information, and then we can interpret the information, and then we can take action.
Yeah,
and that I love.
On very focused, frequently occurring issues where you can iteratively improve continuously, it makes an enormous amount of sense. And that's a really interesting approach to using AI. Well, do you know what I thought was interesting is it is the opportunity for people to work in different parts of the business. So like Amy was mentioning that she was early doors. She got the opportunity to work in the shop floor, so she found out what it was like to work in the stores, which means you get to meet the customers face to face and know what they're like and why they're excited about the products. You get to meet the store assistants who can teach you about the products. Sometimes you might not know about the products, even though you work in the business. You get the opportunity to do the pick pack. Sometimes you're answering the customer service queries. I think it's quite. I think it would be quite humbling and quite useful for a business when staff are working in the different parts of the business where they also touch. Like, how else would you know that you should never really ask for the warehouse to make an exception for you if you haven't tried to implement an exception yourself?
But do you know the thing that like managers dread?
They
dread it. It's when like the CEO goes on like the front line for an hour and they experience a thing. And then suddenly that thing becomes the most important thing to fix in the
entire
business.
Company.
And it could be an exception that happens like once every like 10,000 times. And I know managers absolutely dread that. But I do agree with the principle that everybody should spend time on the front line.
I think the other one is the CEO's friends.
Oh,
because the CEO's friend tried to do something in your business, buy something or whatever, and didn't manage, and then that is
and it will be, and again it will be like one in 10,000
or the
exceptions.
the MD's grandmother's BlackBerry phone.
Yeah, any number of the above, and then that becomes issue number one to fix whilst you've got lots of fires going on. But wrapping it up, AI is incredibly useful. And CX is a point of differentiation at a time when technology, in the general basic e-commerce technology, the playing field is relatively level. So you've got to find ways for your brand to differentiate. And service is one of those areas where you can really excel.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Gordon, it's been a pleasure as ever.
The pleasure was all yours.
You've been listening to Functional and Fabulous with Ger and Gordon Newman. If you'd like to know more about the podcast or about Studio 49 and Omnichannel stories, please go to functionalandfabulous.ie. Our sound engineer was Elaine Smith, and the show was produced by Roger Overall.